Emily, thank you for joining us today for our Women Who Make It Happen series.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. Would you be able to give an introduction to yourself and a little bit more about you?
Yeah, happy to. So I have the privilege actually of leading the analytics business at LSEG, the London Stock Exchange Group. And in that capacity, I get to have a lot of fun actually in terms of transforming data and bringing new types of insights to customers across financial services, lots of different types of roles. I actually joined LSEG about 8 years ago. And through that time, I think both from an LSEG, but also from an industry standpoint, I've seen enormous change, I guess more recently with the advent of AI becoming so popularized across so many different parts of the industry. It's great to be here.
Very good. What, if we can go back to early career before we come on to your role at LSEG, what motivated you to get into financial services or generally take the career path that you have done?
Yeah, I would love to tell you that I had perfect insight and it was all planned. It wasn't at all. I actually wanted to be a doctor and discovered I didn't really like blood. So decided that probably in reality wasn't the right career for me. But actually what I really enjoyed about it was a lot of the problem solving, was the chemistry of it. And actually interestingly with finance, when you think about a lot of the kind of engineering that we do in the way that we're trying to solve for different problems, there's a lot of parallels that people might not want to expect. And actually it was a chance occurrence where someone suggested to me, you should have a look at this. And I started my career at RBS, then moved to Lehman Brothers, and from there just found that it was something where it was incredibly innovative industry where you could really contribute a lot. So it's somewhere where you could make quite a lot of impact in terms of the things that you wanted to think about and actually being able to implement them in a way that really impacted people, impacted the way that people invested, in the way that they thought and were able to find the right information. So from there, it grew. And I think I've been fortunate to always have that progression opportunity to be able to lean into kind of ever expanded sets of challenges and opportunities with it.
Yeah. What were those challenges mostly that you found?
I think there's challenges throughout and they take different forms in different places. I think if you kind of step right back, at least from my perspective at the beginning of my career, some of the challenges that I faced were financial services is vast.
Yeah.
I've never actually met anyone who actually understands the full breadth of financial services. But when you first join financial services, that is overwhelming. And I remember I remember some of these moments very distinctly, sitting in rooms and doing kind of morning meetings on the trading desk and just really reflecting that I was probably understanding about every 2 words, two in every 10 words. And I think, oh, crikey. And I was just taking a lot of notes, and then I would go home at night and I would be reading, trying to understand what was meant, what was intended by some of the things that were being said. And it was truly overwhelming at the beginning. But over time, you start to gain the kind of comfort and familiarity and the kind of context in which a lot of things are said. So for me, initially, it was a lot to do with that. Later on, it becomes, financial services is no way static. Yeah. And actually, that's part of its charm, that it is ever evolving and continually innovating, frankly.
Yeah. And
that is absolutely exciting, but also it means that there's definitely points where you reflect and say, am I having the biggest impact that I could have? Could I do more? Could we do more? What does we do? How do you bring people together on a journey where it is ever evolving? So you always see these kind of manifestations of different challenges in different places. I think one other kind of piece I would just add is within financial services, there's so much interpretation that is different. So different people have, not only is there no one that actually understands necessarily the full breadth, but there's a lot of different perspectives within that as well. And so what is most important? What is the most important problem to solve for? And I think if you were to draw a parallel to something else where you have a very definitive problem that you're trying to solve for, maybe that's easier, where you're trying to keep someone alive.
Yeah.
But actually in reality, I'm sure if you spoke to someone in healthcare and you said, you really dug into that problem, they would say there's all sorts of pros and cons when you think about different treatments. And the same is true in financial services. There isn't a prescriptive formula.
Yeah. Which leads on to AI. I mean,
yeah.
very topical at the moment. Clearly you hold head of analytics at LSEG and you're dealing more in AI at present. So what are you experiencing at the moment in terms of the challenge that may bring, or the priority? What's the priority to solve?
Yeah, it's a great question. I see a real spectrum now. And actually, I think it's quite easy to characterize AI from a technical perspective. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, with the way that we're describing the relevance of AI, it affects everyone. This is the whole community. It is everyone. It's from legal to compliance to operations, to sales, to marketing, to product. There is no part that this doesn't become something that is relevant. And that has the potential of being an incredibly galvanizing force when you think about how does everyone want to use AI to be able to shape getting the best out of it. Mm-hmm. But in there lies the same challenge, because you're trying to bring a lot of people together into something that is potentially quite technical as a topic, and to something where they need to be able to lean into it, to be able to use it to assist them to get the most out of it. And so I find AI an absolutely fascinating topic personally, because the potential of it is extraordinary. Yeah. And coming back to some of those earlier themes on financial services, I quite often reflect on, we're often regarded as an information services industry, except we're not always particularly good at using that information. Yeah. A lot of that information is lost, forgotten in generations, and we're not always able to get the most relevant information for the decisions we want to make at that point in time. Yeah. So how do we do more to make sure that we're surfacing the right information at the right point in time for the people that need it based on the problems they're solving for? And that's where things like AI can really start to help us do a much, much better job. But also in terms of productivity, how do we bring together a lot of tasks that actually we don't like performing, and bring them together in a way that is much more auditable, much more accountable, much more scalable, controlled. Those are some of the great benefits that we can get. But there's a flip side too. And so having that community come around and not only realize the benefits that can be across many different functional areas, but also recognize some of the risks. Some of them are existing risks. Some of them are existing risks that may be magnifying, and some of them are brand new. And really understanding and then tempering that based on what is your use case, what problem are you solving for, so you can get that balance right. So I think this is going to be one of those transformative points, certainly in my career, where we have an opportunity to lean into something and use it for truly a greater good. But to get it right, we need a collective human intelligence. We need humans to come together and agree and align in terms of the right construct to get the best out of it. Yeah.
I think easier said than done, maybe, with AI. It's almost like it is new for a lot of companies and a lot of people to adopt into practices, to look at the pros of it and how can we better improve. Even things like accessing data, what's the data used for? How can we produce insights from this? But yes, I see it from a different side of where clients are saying, "Oh, we need somebody with AI, and they need to know what this is meaning for us as a benefit." But how are they going to know that? Yeah. So
that's actually one of the things where I think there's one of the challenges I think that can potentially come with AI is that people feel like you have to be a really technical ML engineer to be able to use it. If you don't. And I would caution against that, because yes, you have to have a level of understanding based on the promise of true of anything. Yeah. But if we polarize and we don't actually allow for people to be able to engage with it and use it in a safe way, we're not going to get the benefit of all of the domain expertise that exists in so many other facets. And actually, for me, this will shift into much more of a focus on how do we amplify the points of that domain knowledge? How do we bring about consistency, accuracy? At the moment, those are very discrete things where you will have individual experts in certain areas. We struggle sometimes to amplify those people, to amplify the domain knowledge that they have. This presents a lot of opportunity to that. So as much as we talk about things like ML engineering, we also need to talk about the domain expertise. And actually it really provides a lot of different people, customers and actually people at different organizations to be able to showcase like a lot of the domain knowledge and really concentrate on where actually the things that they enjoy the most and where they have the greatest passion and the greatest differentiation.
Yeah. It is a really interesting topic. I mean, we're looking at industry events hosting around AI. Everybody's asking us for it because it's so topical. You've mentioned innovation as well. So there's always this kind of dichotomy of innovate, yes, it's a benefit, but innovation and to what extent? Where does this go? Where does this take us? What can it mean? And this might be leading to the con.
Yeah.
So are there any things from your current experience, maybe with LSEG because of your current role, but anything that you foresee as being, want to be a little bit more cautious about?
So I think, first of all, I think on the word innovation, I think sometimes we have a tendency to talk about innovation that has to be something big and has to be very shiny and dramatic. And I think actually, in truth, some of the best innovations we've ever seen have actually tended to be the things that solved for the greatest benefit of end users. And often they're quite humble in terms of what they are, but they have the greatest potential impact. And those can be big things and small things. And I think that's where it brings me back to when we're thinking about AI, having the discipline around which problem are you solving for? Mm-hmm. And why is that problem a really important problem to solve for? Because if you don't actually have your success criteria, you're probably not going to reach the success criteria.
Yes, that's it.
So having that success criteria is an incredibly important thing when you're thinking about those, what problem am I solving for? Here's my use case. This is how we're going to make it happen. If I kind of take the other point of your question, this flip side, I think if you can define what your use case is and you can have your criteria, it also becomes much easier to explain what are the inherent risks in what I'm doing.
How do we mitigate those? And I think that's what a lot of people it's the unknown.
And if you openly say we're going to solve for everything and we're going to do it in an unconstrained way and we don't quite know which use cases we're solving for, then it's much harder to kind of say these are the risks that are associated with that thing. So taking LSEG as an example, we are very focused on these are the problem statements where we really feel like there's an enormous amount of benefit in terms of speed, accuracy, and actually providing information in a very democratized way to the people who need it to make for the best informed decisions. And then there's a lot of other things which theoretically are possible. Theoretically, but are those the right problems to solve for? And so we spend a lot of time with customers asking them those questions. What are the most important questions for you to solve? Why does that matter to you? What does success look like? And what are the guardrails that you need to make that effective in your organization? And actually that's where your innovation, your practical innovation starts to really come into its own.
Yeah. Very interesting topic for sure. I can see you're very passionate about it as well. If we can navigate slightly a little bit more about really your seniority. So you're a leader, you're senior within LSEG. Obviously you've progressed throughout your career. Being a leader of a team as well, how do you deal with that in terms of leadership style or what's more about Emily that we get to know today?
So I think for me, let me take it in two parts. I think being a leader of a team is, and I'll be biased in my team, is a real privilege. The team are actually what holds me together, provides my inspiration, provides the credibility in our mission. And actually it's so important. And I think often we don't do enough to kind of recognize how that team and community come together to solve for these missions. I am, if it's not very obvious, I'm incredibly proud because to bring a team together with different types of skills, passions, focus, anyone who's come into this is someone with a real talent, a real passion and a drive. And bringing all of those people together, you get these enormous sometimes happy accidents and sometimes intentional deliveries that are extraordinary. I was actually sitting down with one of the team yesterday, and they were showing me something that they have taken pieces and actually really understood the mission statement and actually created something that is so effective and targeted and surprisingly good that it really is humbling in terms of the realization of just how much is there. So for me, being a leader of a team has always been a privilege, increasingly a privilege now as I think about the types of problems we're solving for, particularly with AI and analytics. There's no blueprint. No one has a handbook to say, this is how you do analytics and this is how you do, no one's got it. So it takes that community coming together and solving for problems in a really collaborative way. And being part of that for me is just phenomenal. I think when I think about being a leader at LSEG, again, it is a real privilege, but it's also, there's a responsibility that comes with that. An awareness of the role that we play as an organisation for the community, making sure that we are providing things in a really trusted, accountable way. And I take that very, very seriously, particularly with an analytics AI spirit. The need for us, and I'll link back to something we spoke about earlier, the need for us to think about not just innovating and making sure that we're a partner for customers for the long term, but actually doing it in a really accountable, thoughtful way that I know we can stand behind those answers. So we'll innovate, but we'll do it with trust and credibility continuously. When I'm thinking about the role that I play at LSEG, I take that extremely seriously as we think about the role we play for customers.
Very interesting. Getting more insights into you, Emily. So you've talked about your team.
Yeah.
So within AI analytics specifically, we've kind of transitioned, I think, throughout the years of it being maybe slightly more male dominated throughout FS.
Yeah.
Analytics AI, what's your experience of it within your specific niche?
I think it's mixed. I think I've been fortunate truly to be a part of a generation where there has been much more balance.
Yeah.
And when I think back to when I was at Lehman, it was a pretty balanced intake at that point. That's 2008, 2007. So there has been a step change in terms of the kind of inclusion. I do think though that there is more to be done. And actually, I often see, and not just across, like also within my teams, there's sometimes there's a missing confidence with particularly some of the women in this space where there is no blueprint. There is no, this is how, and there's sometimes just a lacking confidence in terms of having that kind of inner courage and belief to say, let's try.
Yeah.
And let's be open to, it might not work. We have a right to fail. We have a right to fail fast, a lot. And being confident enough to take on that feedback and say, not quite, let's try this, let's try that. That is where I think a lot about how do we coach women to be much more comfortable and open to those challenges in a way that they are bold. Like, how do we make women bold in terms of leaning into some of these types of topics? Yeah. That's not true of everyone, of course, but I would say that I do see a difference there where you don't necessarily have that kind of quite so open, kind of courageous kind of boldness in terms of some of the things we're solving for. So I would love to give women that kind of nudge and like really lean into this, really lean in with that courage, because my goodness, when they do, and the ideas are phenomenal. And actually often you see a creativity, a quiet creativity sometimes, that is unsurpassed. But sometimes you have to work quite hard to kind of tease that out. Yeah.
How do you think you can continue to maintain that balance within your team, within LSEG, particularly for that inclusion piece?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a perfect answer. I think talking about it and actually being aware of it, and actually for some people that will not be true. That's great. How do we make sure, and it's not just about women, it's about everyone just feeling like they have the confidence to speak up and have the voice to say, I have an idea,
Yeah.
And that for me is the goal. Like, how do we get everyone, no matter how senior or junior, to say, I have an idea and it looks like this. And then how do we make sure we've got the community around those people to not belittle that idea, but to kind of nurture it, to say, that's a really nice piece. Maybe if we just tweak this bit, or we kind of thought about that, we could really amplify that. And the times that we've, certainly speaking of my own experience, the times where we've seen that, where I can actually pull up other examples where someone on the team had a fantastic idea the other day. And I was a relatively junior member of the team, but it was a phenomenal idea. And the team rallied around them, and they're executing this, happens to a woman as well. She's executing this faster than I've ever seen anyone, because she's leaning in with such incredible drive and passion.
Amazing.
And that's what happens when we get it right.
Yeah.
But how to systematically make sure that everyone feels championed and supported for their ideas, I see it as a journey. I definitely don't have the answer to it, because the problem we have is people get busy and we get very focused in terms of the objectives that we're solving for, and making sure that we create that space for people to lean in with their ideas, feel supported with their ideas. I feel like is an incredibly important thing. Also in mitigating risks. Yeah. It's also where we start to see maybe things aren't quite right. How do we make sure that we're proactively, because often the signals are there, how do we make sure we hear that early so we can do something about it?
Yeah. I think it's that openness and, like you said, the community of giving somebody the opportunity to have a voice and for it to be welcomed. Just wish more institutions would do it, quite frankly. We've touched a little bit on your career and obviously your leadership, the inclusion, the diversity. I think from me, and just wanting to know a little bit more about you, where did this drive and ambition come from, really, for you? Because you've really excelled and you're doing a lot of things that only a lot of the industry could, be inspired by. So where did that drive come from for you?
I think I've always been genuinely slightly surprised. Something a lot of people don't know about me is I'm actually by character quite reserved. And so for me, I see every opportunity as like I'm so grateful, and I'm truly grateful. And I want to repay that kind of investment in terms of bring everything that I can bring to it. And so I think it comes from a place of gratitude. My determination and passion comes from the gratitude of being given the opportunity. And I remember the first time that I came to Canary Wharf. And just for context, I grew up on a farm in Scotland. And I came to Canary Wharf and I came up one of the escalators and I saw 25 Bank Street, which was Lehman Brothers building at the time. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm here. Don't know why I'm here. And so I think sometimes people describe that in terms of imposter syndrome and things like that. But I was so grateful. And I was so grateful to be part of a community where there were so many people that were so talented and so thoughtful, and they had so many ideas. And this is really fun. There's a lot of people that are sparking off each other and building things. And to be a part of that community was totally awe-inspiring from my perspective. And then that just continued. With every opportunity that I've been given, I've always just been grateful. And I hope to always bring something to it. I always hope to walk away and say, brought something to that. We'll always come with a slight awe, but that's exciting. So I don't know if that answers the question, but certainly for me, it comes from a place of gratitude.
Lehman Brothers too. the farm origins in Scotland.
Truly. But what a thing to be a part of and impact. And you read the headlines and you read the FT and you read about some of the things that are happening, and to actually have not just an opinion about something, but actually a role in some of the things that are being written about, that's stuff of legacy. And the legacy is not my legacy, but to be a part of a legacy where we're doing something that means and it matters. It matters for millions of people. And I see the same thing with AI. As much as there's risks, if we can lean into it and put the guardrails around it and make it something that is powerful and usable for us, we create such opportunities to solve problems that exist today. I see that as the challenge and opportunity.
Yeah. But particularly for you, in your younger self, was there a particular female role model that you aspired to, or somebody that you looked up to in your personal life and career?
Yeah, I've had a number of people, actually not female, who actually really took me under their wing and nurtured me quite early, and that was really important for me. I don't know that it was a role model per se, but it was someone who I could lean into. And when I was just looking, I don't understand this. And I think at least from my perspective, I think a lot of people have those moments in time where you say,
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And having that person that you trust and can lean into and say, help me make sense of this, help me package this and guide a path forward. Call that mentorship, call that role modeling. Call it someone who's had the kind of experience of seeing some of those things in the past and has been incredibly important for me. But actually, it's actually in some of the female mentors, and I've had a few female mentors, I still have a number of female mentors, where I've seen different things that I've needed at different stages. I think one of the things that I see with my female mentors is I think there are transitions that you go through in your career. So when I had children, for example, that was quite a big transition point for me. I was like,
me too.
Crikey. Well, this is interesting. So I am so sleep deprived. I'm so tired now. And I'm now confronted by lots of different feelings like, am I being a good mother? I keep being asked questions like, how do you balance?
Yeah.
I keep being given comments like, I don't know how you're doing it. And that it kind of creates a bit of or certainly in me, it created a bit of a kind of dilemma of like, am I getting this right?
Yeah.
Am I making the right choices? I'm hugely passionate about my career. I love my children to bits. I want to do both. I don't want to have to choose. I want to be able to do both of those things. And actually it was in my female mentors that we talked about a lot of those things. And you don't have to compromise. You don't have to walk away and feel like you can balance. It is, that'll be just not easy.
I completely agree with you.
Really tough. And it is definitely not a straight line. It's probably a very jagged one where some days are great and some days are, neither thing is working. But what's happening over time is the resilience and the consistency and the perseverance is building all of the time. And actually one of the best mentors that I had really showed me that and showed me what it was doing from a character perspective in terms of building up a resilience and a confidence and frankly a determination that it's going to work. But that came from having other women who had gone through the same experience of trying to run and do nursery pickups and trying to deal with a sick child, and you're in the middle of a meeting and you get that call from a nursery and you go and pick them up and you're like, oh crikey. And you're going to go and run and pick them up. And I've done conference calls and covered in sick and I've had it all. And, you know, it's some of the most brutal and humbling moments, I think, from my perspective. But what's happened is that my focus on what's really important to me has sharpened more and more. So I don't do a lot of other things, but the things that I've really committed to, I've really committed to. And I don't know that I've had the courage without the mentors and the role models throughout my career, but I've needed different things at different stages.
Yeah. I can completely relate. I have a boy as well. So I think that resonates with a lot of females, even like females working generally who have children, but certainly in senior management as well, or exco. It is that balance. I think from my perspective, it's always interesting to hear how other women navigate it's almost like the guilt of, right, I'm in mum mode. Okay, the guilt of not having the time to do work,
Yeah.
and then it's linked.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How do you ensure that you do, when you say focus and you prioritize? How do you ensure that you remain that way?
I think you have to be really disciplined, and I'm very deliberate on. I'm very different, even from my phone. So there's different states that I'm in. This is my personal time. This is my work time, and it's not always easy. But try to be all in those moments, unrelenting focus in those moments, and optimize. And some days I do it better than other days, and some days I find myself but when I'm really optimizing in both states and I'm disciplined about it, it works. But also it's, I couldn't do any of this alone. It comes with having a support network, and comes with having a great family around this that also pick you up when things are not working out, but also fill in a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
And make sure that no one is an individual on this. And I think with your female or your male, you need that community around you in terms of making sure that you can. An ambition is not a solo thing.
Yeah.
An ambition is often a shared ambition. And you need other people to realize on an ambition, not just yourself. And I think that's been one of my personal learnings, is just how much I needed and how much I learned from other people in terms of what that looked like, what happiness looked like, actually, fulfillment looked like. Not about vaulting ambition. It's about really having that kind of fulfillment of really doing something that matters and it impacts.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's always looking at whether it be childcare, whether it be a work priority, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
There's always something that can be done.
And then it also sometimes comes back to, for me, that what does happiness look like? What is
what does it look like to you, Emily?
That's a trick question. For me, and I take a huge amount of pride. I've actually just come back from a camping holiday in Scotland with my kids, and I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I was watching them playing, and they were just so happy, and they were kind of making a den and stuff, and just so happy. And my son kind of came over, and he had a load of ideas, and I just thought, that's phenomenal. He's got so much joy and relaxed happiness, and he's just creating, and it's kind of similar to he's got that space, and he feels supported to be able to just share his ideas, as wild as they are. And I think for me, seeing that joy and happiness is huge.
Yeah.
But that was some of my, how do I feel fulfilled as a mother? To know my children are safe, happy, supported.
Yeah.
And same thing at work. How do I feel like I'm achieving from a work perspective? I feel like I'm really contributing. And it's not that I shy away from challenge, but to feel fulfilled that when you solve for the problems, you're contributing, you're moving the dial.
Yeah.
Piece by piece.
Yeah.
But I think being clear about that, because otherwise it can become a little bit open-ended. You have to be disciplined.
I could ask you 1,000,001 questions now, Emily, probably more about that. But I think it's quite powerful on the points you mentioned before about the rallying around team and just being that person to allow people to put ideas forward and speak, and you wish you could do more. I guess this leads on quite nicely to our usual final question of what advice would you give, in part maybe, onto younger females particularly, coming into the industry?
Yeah, I think leaning with courage will be, if you cannot be overwhelmed and not be distracted by people who will say things that you don't quite understand, but you have the tenacity to learn and research and understand, and then the confidence, the inner belief that there's something that you're bringing to this that is unique and it's special, and have courage in that, and then just lean in and keep leaning in. And sometimes it's just persistence in terms of making sure that you continually get up and deliver. And sometimes some of those days are going to be a lot harder than some of the other days. And some days you'll spring out of bed and other days you're like, crikey. But consistently leaning in. There's, in my mind, no reason that there should be any difference for anyone leaning in. But that isn't true today. And we need to make sure that we're creating that space. But everyone has to create that space. One of the things that I think we sometimes misguide on is the responsibility of a few people to create the space for people to feel supported and lean in. It's all of our responsibilities. And as soon as you walk into, speaking of this community, as soon as you walk into this community, it just became your responsibility too. And the more of us that collectively do that, we will create the space for people to feel supported, feel included, and we will bring the best of this industry through.
I think very powerful words to end on. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Well, this is a platform for, other females, other talent generally, to listen to your inspirational story as well. So hopefully your voice will resonate with a lot of them. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.